Hello everyone, Darrell Webster from all the way from New Zealand, also known as Darrell as a Service, at your service. Today's session is about getting started with Microsoft Loop. I do, first of all, before we want to get into that, talk a little about our cause for the event. This is a fantastic cause for the Chicago Public Schools. I really align with this, that there's a lot of great people out there, all students that have got tons of talent, but they don't all have access to the resource to be able to express that talent and learn. So this is a good cause to be able to get some more of those resources, get some funding towards those schools, and help to give an equal opportunity as equal as possible. So do consider contributing to that. There's also a great big thanks to all the sponsors that are making this possible too, as you saw there from Tygraph and the great video there about their product. So getting started with Microsoft Loop. If you were like me watching those videos coming out of Microsoft Ignite, it was like, whoa, what's going on? Hang on, I'm following, and everything was all over the screen, and it was hard to really digest and think, what is this thing? Was it live components? Was it something else? I don't know what's happening here. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to break it down and take a good look at it. But I just want to draw us back to a need here in terms of what is it? Well, I think it's about trying to simplify collaboration. And like here we have Brittany and myself, we're just trying to make notes because we've grabbed something, we've got this idea, and we're just drawing wherever we can. Sometimes when we're in a meeting like this, we go, okay, who's OneNote, yours or mine? Okay, I'll grab one and I'll quickly create it. I'll share it. I'll do all these things. I'll email it to you. And before we can actually start getting to collaborating on the same page, we've already lost the idea because of all the barriers. Megan says, why don't we just chat within the chat, put the notes in there? Sometimes we even do that. We end up just making notes there as a backup, or maybe we fire up Notepad. Notepad. So moving along, we're going to try and cover this thing in terms of an agenda. What is Microsoft Loop? What can you do with it today? Now, I think I'm going to be delivering this session over and over. It's going to be on Loop because there's going to be a lot of things coming out over the next 6 to 12 months. But what can we do today? We'll have a look at that. When would you use Loop? That's a question that we really are all asking, and perhaps it's not so obvious because the experience is so subtle today, but we'll see where we can use that and how to get started, not just for yourself, but within your organization as the experience arrives. So let's try and explain this fantastic product called Microsoft Loop. Look, I think of it as a very flexible new way to collaborate in Microsoft 365. We hear about it being called a canvas and a collection of atomic somethings. I forget all the marketing spiel. But Loop provides a simple place to get started co-creating and building on each other's ideas. And the challenge today is we work together and we're trying to get started and try and include everyone, but we don't all work at the same time. We work remotely, we work in person. It can be difficult to coordinate our availability, and my best time to co-create might not be your best time, which is why sometimes we just start in chat and we're just grabbing anything we can to take those ideas down and pull things together. Now, we need to be able to make the most of that collaborative time together. So we need somewhere to simply start. Simply start. That's the key words. And keep in sync and make the best of our time to contribute together. This is the genius of Microsoft Loop. It's a simple place to get started. And we can start within the conversation. Now, what you're seeing there is the marketing video. We're going to see a bit more about what our experience is today, but really it's about starting from the conversation and getting to collaborating. Everything is live and kept in sync, and people who weren't able to join us live can join in a bit later as well. Another big theme of this is about lowering the barriers. So one thing you might find still, even in Teams or even in whatever tools you are using, you tend to be going from tool to tool to tool. And all these promises of we're trying to take away the silos and we're trying to make it easier to access information. We're still in channels, we're still in tabs, we're still finding conversations and trying to make use of search. So this is all about trying to put everything on a page and making it easier for people to access. We'll see more of that soon. Microsoft's really good at making names for products that then also are used to try and explain things. So I was going to talk about the 3 components of Loop, but components is already taken as a word. So we are going to talk about components, which is the very starting point of Loop, pages where these components sit, and then workspaces as well. So components to begin with. This is the genius of starting a loop, that you can do it simply from a Teams conversation. This is our experience today. We go to Teams chat, private chat, maybe meeting chat as well. We click the loop button and we can create a quick space to start collaborating. There aren't any delays, right? It's just get in and start doing it. And where that loop is and all that sort of stuff, we'll have a look at that later too, but it's all taken care of us. We can just get on with working and shift the content later and work around with it later as we need to. No need to stop and find a notebook or a document to begin, or find a tab in Teams, or search for something that we know is shared. So it's about making a quick start. And components are also much like templates. You might have a list that you want to start of ideas, or a task list, or as you see up in the top right-hand corner, a table, probably the most functional experience of Loop. Components are simply just a quick way to get started on a Loop page. And sure, they are the first experiences within a Teams conversation, but you'll see later on we'll be able to start components in all kinds of places. So these are just a few. Also keep an eye on this. There's going to be a growing list of components. If you know some of the other products that are out already in the market that have this kind of canvas experience, you'll be able to add lots of different components into a Microsoft Loop as well as we go. Components also, the strength, and I didn't get any demo content here, but we'll see it in action soon, is that you can share these things in multiple places. So it's not just about here's a page or here's a something else, but it's about linking that content and dropping it into the place where you are working. If that's in a chat, great. If that's in a whiteboard, cool. If that's in an Outlook message, then there too. So we'll see that in action. It's also very quick. Now, I've got a bone to pick, I guess. I used to be a big fan. Well, okay, I'm still a big fan of OneNote. And I use it as a starting point for a lot of things. But over the years, the synchronization's got a bit woeful. And, I might be sitting there trying to collaborate with some people. And have you seen it yet? No, it hasn't arrived. Okay, we'll wait for it to sync. It's just, but Loop is almost instant. And that's really one of its strengths with co-authoring. Excuse me. So our next part of the Loop experience is pages. And when you create your first Loop component within a Teams chat today, you will actually be creating a page. There's a page behind it. And so we've got our list or bullet point of list, but here we are. We can add more to that page. It doesn't have to stop at just that one component. So good experience there, being able to just continue to build out our ideas and use other starting points to try and create our ideas together. We also have some loop aware experiences. Now I call them loop aware because it's the apps that we know and love, but they're going to be able to present Loop to us in that experience. So we have an example here of, on the left, you've got the Loop that we might have created in a Teams chat, but on the right, you've got Outlook web access, and that same Loop can be within that experience too. So it is going to be Loop aware, and it means that we can work on that content and refer people to it wherever they are. We've also got the experience coming up soon, again with an Outlook, but also leveraging OneNote, and that it's guiding us towards good habits for setting up our appointments, create an agenda, and get people to add to it. That same loop will be attached to the meeting so that when we actually run the meeting, we can start to add notes. And if you're so inclined, add notes beforehand, like preparation things and tasks. Capture the tasks afterwards as well. So that will be a combination of OneNote and Loop together. And we have seen Whiteboard as well as one of those promoted experiences where the Loop, I think, in the Whiteboard will give us a bit more order, because a table, you can lay out content a bit, but your free form collaboration will be all around that with your Whiteboard. Okay, so we have components, pages. We haven't talked about Workspaces, and Workspaces is going to come with the full Microsoft Loop application, which is supposedly coming the second half of this year. So we're fingers crossed. We're hoping that will stick to the plan. Workspaces is all about bringing the content together in the way that we need to try and keep it under control. You might have remembered this from some of the marketing videos that came out of Ignite, the great unicorn pictures and all sorts of things flying everywhere. Well, we see here on the page, this is where components fits in. Now, it does look a little different, but we can expect that from conceptual renders and videos, but it's going to be able to be part of the page. So we've seen that, an example of a page with lots of components. We can see the page itself. Great, one day we'll be able to put in headers and give it a bit of decoration, but the sense is that it's going to be part of that loop experience. Now, as we're creating all our loops right now and trying to collaborate on the fly within conversations, the question comes like, how do we keep all these things together and keep track of things? How do we bring it so that it's all like related to a project or a task or something that we're trying to plan for? And that's where Workspaces come in. So that experience is going to come with a full Microsoft Loop app. It'll be a desktop app. I'm hoping it'll also be a web browser experience as well. And I'm not sure what it'll look like on mobile, but there you go. Pages, components, Workspaces. So let's get into doing some demoing of what that experience is today. And before I talk about those 4 things that we're going to cover, it is rolling out right now to your organization if you're in standard release. It was supposed to be complete for standard release at the end of December, but I'm seeing mixed experiences there. Some people have got it in our organization, some haven't seen it at all. So we'll cover off how you can start to use it today if you want to have an early look. We're going to create some content, a component starting a loop from a Teams chat. We're going to just point out a few pieces of the loop and help you make sense of the anatomy of a loop. We'll also co-create some content together, and we'll look at sharing that loop. Alrighty. Forgive the Alt tab, but we'll take a look at chat. And we'll also just get the mobile experience ready too. Okay, so we are in a conversation with Matt. This is a Teams chat. It's a private chat between Matt and myself. And this is where Matt and I might come up with an idea and we're talking about things. So we want to quickly grab something that we can start to record that together and then potentially work on it after the conversation. So we're going to create a new conversation, a new component from this chat. Now, the button we're going to use is this live component button, and that's going to change in look too. It's going to start looking like the loop icon that we've begun to see. So prepare for that change, or maybe it's just going to arrive and be right for you. One point to note here, if I'm in that conversation with Matt and I say, hi again, Matt, he might chat back with me and I say, let's start. And I might try and add that loop. The loop has to be added to an empty conversation. So it's something to keep in mind as you do that. You'll get the prompt. All right, so let's look at these components. These are our starting points. Remember, we're creating a loop page as soon as we choose one of these loops and one of these components. I'm going to choose a bulleted list. And at this point, we'll point out a few things about the anatomy of a loop. What we have is a title, so let's give that a title. This is going to be January Content Planning. At the top left-hand corner, this is going to turn into a link where we can go through to where the loop actually lives. At the moment, it's in draft. We have a place where we can adjust the permissions. So this is where if I wanted to share it with Matt, but I don't want him to share it beyond us, I can adjust what he can do with the link and how that is shared. So we'll just leave it as is, but it's also picking up my defaults from my organization. The default choices I've got are share it with people in my organization and allow editing. Note that at the moment, there's no option there to share it with just anyone anonymously. I don't know what's going to happen there. But those are permissions. We've also got that this was the last time it was edited just now because I'm in it live, and at the moment it's just me. So let's put in one of those ideas. Let's say it was footings auto expiring. Do you know about that? Of course you do. All change managers on the call. That's a feature where our meeting recordings will expire after 90 days, and you'll want to let people know about that. So we're going to put that into content planning. Now, I'm not actually doing anything with Matt yet. That's another point to note. I could just start this loop, give it a title, which then names the file in the background, and then send it. I do tend to like to add something to seed the loop so that it starts to be something we can collaborate on, but let's send that component off. This is the point where Matt can see it. In fact, you'll start to see Matt, let's go in here. He's livened up, so there's Matt. Matt has the file open. Matt's also going to add something to this, so I think what was my other idea? Oh yeah. Oh, I forgot what the other thing I was going to cover. Other thing that is changing. That'll do. ASDF. So Matt's adding something to that content. You can see that as soon as he starts to write or type, he's given a color. You can see where his cursor is, and we see that experience in Word and PowerPoint and Excel and those sorts of places. So that's all quite familiar to us and very snappy, very quick. So that's good. Now that Matt is in there, I can click this button and see who has access to it. So of course, Matt and I have access to it because we're in a conversation. But because of the way that we created that link to share, it's also considering people outside of this chat with the link will have access. So it's good to be able to check that and see. And now that we have a link, then Matt or myself can copy that link and share that in another conversation. We'll do that in a little while. We've sent it, so we've got the title. We've got oh, that's right. After sending the loop, it has picked up this name, and that is actually what the file has been named. So we'll click through to that soon and show you what that loop looks like. But just as you see here, I've selected some text. What's popped up? Rich formatting. So I can either use that small toolbar or expand it, and I can give things. You can see that's picked up the heading 1 and 2, and I can also, just select that text and I don't know, maybe italicize it. So all those sorts of little things that we can do to draw a bit more attention and make this content a bit easier to find and write with. So that's us collaborating. Now let's go ahead and open this in Loop, or rather in office.com. So today, because we don't have a Loop, Microsoft Loop application on the web, and we don't have the desktop app, clicking that link goes through to this experience where we were able to try out fluid files in the past. This is what Loop used to be called. So it is just within office.com. It is the Loop page. That's cool. I can see the two cursors in there from us both collaborating from different spaces. And yeah, you might look at it and go, wow, it's kind of underwhelming. It's not much going on. It's just text, and so what? Okay, but what else can I do from here? This is where the page becomes something you can add more components to. We might have started that collaboration as a quick bullet list, but now let's do something more to it. Let's add with a /, start to type the word task, for example, and choose that. And now we're going to create a task list. So this becomes something a bit more functional than bullets or checkboxes or paragraphs. We can hit this button here and start to add some tasks. So one of the things that I want to do is we'll say I want Matt to create an outline for the video content. And so I'll assign that to Matt. And mention Matt, and that's cool. We'll just choose Matt, and we'll see what happens when Matt mentions me in a task too, because that's quite a cool experience. But we'll give him about a week to write that outline. 6 days left. Cool. All right. So let's switch back over to jump into here and see what happens when Matt adds a task as well. So Matt's going to, let's see, create an outline. He's going to ask me to write the script at mention Darrell. You can't see this at the moment because Matt's doing that. We'll give Darrell also a week to get things done. And ta-da, that should work. Okay, so shortly, there we go. When I'm mentioned in a loop, it becomes much like a conversation. If I go back to activity here, then there's some activity feed there that I've been mentioned in the loop. So there will be conversation going on in a chat, but also if someone's just working out of the loop somewhere in whatever application, then that mention will also give me that alert to say that it's content that I'm being mentioned in. Finally, let's copy this link and we'll go over to loop Laura into the loop. I'm going to do this in a separate conversation just to help illustrate this. We could have also added her to the group chat, but this way I'm giving Laura a different experience. So let's just paste that link in there. Because this is loop aware, it's going to show the embed of loop, which is the fantastic thing. We'll expect to see this coming up in Teams channels as well eventually, and other places too. At this point too, I can limit Laura and say, this is just between you and I, Laura, and Matt as well. I don't want Laura necessarily sharing that outside of our conversation. So that's sharing the loop. Oh, and finally, I was going to try and quickly show you from the mobile what this looks like. So the mobile experience is pretty cool too, really. Let's have a look. Go back over here. All right, so two conversations going on with Matt and Laura. Let's jump into Laura's one. That'll catch up with itself. Maybe we'll jump into the one there with Matt. So it gives us a preview of what the loop is, and then to actually work in the loop, we tap the loop, goes over to a second page, and that's when we can start adding content here. You know, we can add our notes and we can start to add content and tasks and things. So pretty cool. Let's we'll leave that there for now and come back to the mobile experience a bit later, but let's cover off a few more concepts within our presentation. Alrighty. When would we use loop? Well, hopefully I've showed you one good example of when you would use it. It's definitely something that it will take a habit to form, especially if it's just this little button there that you don't really, it's just there for now, and oh, that's right, I could use a loop in this situation. To your point earlier, moderator, we have so many tools, when am I going to use them? Well, hopefully I'll help to frame this up better in this section. Now, let's just think about a timeline in terms of content creation and ideas and the life of an idea. An idea starts and maybe it is temporary, and we need to be able to form those ideas and quickly capture them. And so we've seen that loop can fit that role quite nicely if we start to form a habit around using it. Just think, whenever you think of using OneNote or maybe typing that text in a notepad or dropping it into the chat itself, just start up a loop and work on it from there. As the idea grows, you might bring other people in like we did with Laura and try and refine that idea and start getting them to contribute to the same idea. So a loop becomes semi-permanent. It means that it's getting more of a life. It's not just sort of sitting there as just a list of random ideas, but more people are involved and they're contributing. And as this grows even further, and we'll see a good experience of all of this soon, we are collecting, we're collaborating, we're doing a bit of research, we're maybe putting in references to other articles or resources and trying to make this one big canvas, one place to go to work on this idea and reference the other tools. And that is the other thing about this. Loop is just the beginning, and maybe it is the container for our ideas, but we're still going to use full applications, aren't we? We're still going to go to our Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other things, task managers and all that sort of stuff to create these fuller experiences. So we will draft and refine, we will publish using those tools. So in the scenario of planning a presentation or perhaps, an event, we form those ideas, we are sharing them together and working on them and getting people to contribute. We're trying to pull together a team to be able to make this the best presentation possible. Maybe it's the keynote for Ignite or something like that. We are then starting to work within the more substantial tools, and then we're actually running it. We're actually taking that content and using it to its fullest potential. So it's not by chance that I chose to illustrate this as a loop. Hopefully that imagery will stay with you. Good. The life cycle or the loop of content and ideas. There are also
Sorry,
ways.
Darrell, we
Yeah.
have a question in the chat window. I think it might be a good time to take it.
Okay.
It says, does that loop-based task list integrate with To-Do or Outlook tasks? When you created the loop, we had the task list.
Yep, not today, but it will. We have that on good authority from, actually it was spoken in one of the Ignite sessions, that a new task experience will also synchronize with Planner and To-Do. So there is that view to make the content easier to bring over to fuller applications. Wouldn't it be amazing if they built Word from the ground up and it was also using Fluid in the background, and we could transfer our loop content over seamlessly and start using fuller formatting tools in Word? Amazing.
Yeah, does that happen now at the moment? Because that was my next question.
No. We're all pie in the sky and thinking about stuff at that point. Look, there is going to be a feedback forum. We used to use user voice. Now there's the what is it, the dynamics experience of that, where you can give feedback. And I've suggested that the loop forum for giving feedback should be named the feedback loop. Let's see if that name sticks. Two things about loop as well, and two ways to think about it. There is unplanned use of loop. That's what we saw beforehand when Matt and I were having a conversation. We came up with an idea. We had a moment of need, so we used the loop to try and take some notes and list some things. And it does require us to form a habit around how we use loop, and remembering to use that tool. But it does support that spontaneous need for collaboration and that kind of activity. And we can take that and share it with others, and it becomes more substantial, more semi-permanent to permanent in terms of our ideas. The other way is deliberate and planned use of loop. And this becomes, I guess, it's a bit easier once the tool becomes fully available, but you can do it today. And I give another example of meetings, which we'll step through soon, where we are setting up a loop page, much like we might set up a whiteboard or a OneNote page. We are listing out the different components that might support the collaborative activity that we have planned for this experience. And in the best possible situation, some people will set up a little bit of time to prepare for this meeting. They'll read a few resources beforehand. They might contribute some ideas or even add some content to the agenda to make this a more rich experience for people, and bring in value to that meeting. So that's deliberate use, planned use, and that's going to become more possible as we have more loop experiences across the loop-aware applications and when Microsoft Loop becomes fully available. Now the demo, let's see this in action. We're going to set up a meeting and we're going to add loop to the meeting chat. We're going to add an agenda section, and we'll also add a few things in the loop to help people prepare. There'll be a notes section and then some actions as well. So let's see that in action. Now, this will be a better experience once we actually have that loop experience of going to schedule a meeting and it's already there in that space. But there's always time to improve on that, and we'll just see what we can create here. So we've got, we'll start with our calendar, and I have created a meeting already because I didn't want you to sit there and watch me type in titles and names and things like that. So we will work with a meeting that we already have scheduled. And in future, part of this experience of scheduling the meeting, you'll be able to set up the loop as part of it. You'll be sending that content to them. But for today, what I'm going to do is show you a slight workaround and a way of bringing the loop into that meeting experience. So we've got the meeting going, and guess what? Loop is supported in a private meeting chat. So we don't though, we don't have it within the meeting details card. So I'm in the meeting or calendar app here in Teams. And if I go to the chat tab, I could start a conversation, which I need to do, but I don't have the loop button here yet. So let's just say adding loop content. By starting the conversation, I now have visibility of it within the chat app, which is where loop is supported today. So now I can go to chat, I can see the meeting that I've scheduled and the conversation has started, and now I can start a loop. But what am I going to do? I'm actually going to take that loop we created earlier to try and show you some of this loop life cycle, or the life cycle of an idea. We're now going to get together and have a meeting about that loop, not little private chats all off to the side. So I'll go back to Matt's experience of, or where the loop is. I could do it in Matt or Laura. I'll grab a copy of that loop and we'll go back into the meeting and paste it here. Okay, so we've got our loop, and we've already got the idea started. This is what we're talking about, content planning for January. And forgive all the spelling mistakes, that's okay, it's a demo. But we've already got that content there. And what's one thing we still need to do? We need to send it. I can see Matt's in there because he's already viewing it from, we'll bring Matt over just briefly. Here's Matt in a web browser, he can see, and he still has the loop open. But we'll send this off so now that it's part of the meeting chat as well. So now it's visible here. We'll also go into the meeting chat from Laura and from Matt, and you should see both of them appear up here very shortly. There we go. So they both have the loop open, they're in the meeting, and they might start to add content like an agenda. So let's actually do that. Let's create some space here for an agenda, /agenda. Good. We're going to, what are we going to do? Let's review ideas. We'll assign that to Laura, and we'll give her notes. And then Laura might also, she'll add something, because it's no good that Darrell keeps dishing out the tasks. I think that he should get one too. So Laura's going to dish a task out as well. It's going to be his prioritize and assign ideas, and that will be, oh no, we'll give it to Matt. We'll give it to Matt. Darrell does have enough to do. 10 minutes. All right. So the idea with this is that there's content that we're planning and creating and talking about. We've got ideas, and then we're going to go through those ideas, prioritize and assign them. But you see here, we've created an agenda, and we haven't attended the meeting yet. So maybe some of the things that we could do are some preparation tasks. So I'll just add some of those items here. We'll make that a heading 1, and we'll just create a bulleted list as well. So lots of different ways to create this this content.
Okay. Quick pause. We have we have a question in the chat window. So it says, will meeting notes added to Outlook update in a Teams meeting as well using the components?
Yeah, that's correct. Once the loop component is available and embedded in Outlook, if it was an email, you will see it live and embedded in the email, and whatever you add to it from wherever the loop is visible will reflect wherever the loop is visible. So you added something in an email and you send that off and people add their agenda to it, then you'll come back over here to Teams and you can see that there too. Now, I'll actually inoculate some concerns here. Some people have said, oh no, what are we going to do in terms of governance? The content's always changing. Help. Okay, well, what is the difference between linking something in an email to, let's say, a live Word document or seeing the Word document embedded in Outlook? None. None in terms of change of content. The only difference is we can see it. So don't be too concerned about the content changing, because when you do need to bring it over to something that won't change so much, when you want to publish it, there's a whole process for that. So don't worry too much about that. And, you know, conversations are always changing around content.
Yes,
was there another question?
Yes, it says it's a little confusing, you know, the experience that we can add the loop to the meeting charts. So I think this is a workaround, right?
It is a workaround today. That's correct. But what I'm also illustrating is that you can take that loop link and add it into any experience that's going to support loop. And even if it doesn't support loop, I can take this now and I can copy that link and drop it into an email. And it's just going to be a link that someone will click and they'll go through to, where is it? They'll see this page at a minimum. So yeah, there are lots of different things that I'm showing you, and I know that it helps to have hands on the tools to be able to understand how it all works. So my hope is that it will appear shortly for everyone. Okay, so we have, we've taken that same loop and we've used it in a meeting invite, and now we might also even, you know, maybe have a section on notes. And of course, as you can see, everyone can take collaborative notes together. So that's really cool. Let's finish off with a couple of other concepts around how to get people started, because we've seen some examples of how to use Loop and where we might use it. But what about adoption? This great concept of, okay, how are we going to get everyone to adopt it? It's really, in my opinion, about choosing high value experiences and introducing that in so that people can build it in as part of a habit or as part of just a natural collaborative experience. Admittedly, it's not the best experience today that we have this subtle little loop that's only there as part of a Teams chat. It's not like we can go to a meeting and add it there naturally, or we can't necessarily go to a loop app and say, I want to start a loop ahead of time and then share it with people, like we might with a Word document. But there's some things that we can do today to help with that. You've seen the example of meetings, where if we do use it to plan ahead, then it is a good replacement for OneNote. And, you know, we will have an application later that will help bring those pages together. What I didn't show you, and I probably should, no, we don't have time, but I'll just tell you, that when you're creating a loop in a private chat or a private meeting, just like attaching a file to that experience, they're all saved in a folder in your OneDrive, the Microsoft Teams chat files. I created the loop, it'll be in that folder in my OneDrive. But later, when we can start these loops in a Teams channel conversation, it'll be in a folder within the channel. So it'll be shared there, and that will be my preference. But there's nothing stopping us later, once the two experiences are there, that we can shift that content around to where it should be and not, you know, have it sitting in someone's OneDrive and be concerned about its life cycle there. Meetings, group chats, we've seen that in action too. As you start to form your habit around using it for taking notes, then it's a good thing to just, you know, hit that button. If you do also want to target a group of people that will start to demonstrate and make people aware of this by the way that they use it, then meeting organizers are a good group to just bring them in and show them a few features, coach them a bit, set up a little campaign that starts off by addressing their needs and helping them to see the value of Loop. And also crowdsourcing ideas. I know we've got conversation tools like Yammer and Teams and all sorts of ways like forms to be able to do that. Maybe another way is to share a loop and get people to contribute that using the table as a way of ideas. And there will be a great component coming soon called the voting table, which will allow you to add an idea to a row and then people can vote on it and upvote it and indicate which one they like. So I said there's going to be lots of components coming, so keep an eye out on that. Well, I've been busy with creating content, but also pulling together like-minded people who are also wanting to learn about Loop. So today, if you don't have Loop, it hasn't arrived in your tenant, you can speak to a special person who has permission to create a policy in Teams, and they can add you to the Teams public preview. Highly recommend using that anyway, because it's a good way to experience some Teams features early and give some feedback to the people that need to know and tell people about changes. But that's one way to get Loop today in Teams chat. Should be here soon. We've got a Loop user group running in LinkedIn. It's got a healthy membership already. There is conversations going there about how people are using Loop today and what's working and what isn't working. Lots of good opinions, good, bad. Heck, we've even got someone from the main marketing group of Notion and other competing products, because I think they're interested in what's going on. Lastly, I do have a free Microsoft Loop course, Learn Microsoft Loop. Look, we're all learning it as we go. As things are being released, it's good to learn together. I'm going to put in the hard work to try and make that available so that people can learn. So there'll be new content there frequently. You'll find that at MWC Tips Microsoft Loop Resources. And I said I'm finishing off this with a Q&A where I'm going to shift it over to Twitter Spaces if you want to jump on an audio experience, a bit like Clubhouse. So get out your QR code reader and scan that and be ready to join me via Twitter Spaces, and we can have a bit of an audio conversation back and forth about questions. So thank you.
Yeah, we have a question in the chat window.
Certainly.
Will e-discovery be able to discover loops? Will it have access to all versions of a specific loop? E-discovery.
Oh, yes. E-discovery. Yeah, the good news here, and especially for those who are admins or admin-minded on the call, it is just another file in SharePoint. So it is going to turn up in e-discovery. It is going to have versioning available. If I was to flick back very quickly over to here, I can go into here and see version history, because it is just another file in SharePoint. There it is, version 5, 6, 7. Matt contributed, etc. So I know that's not the e-discovery experience that you wanted to see, but just giving you some peace of mind that it is just another file in OneDrive, which let's just show you that too. Good question though. Any other questions in the chat?
None. I think we covered it. Yes.
No problem. If anyone wants to just have a good old chat about Loop and ask questions or even share some of your experiences, then join me in that Twitter space. But thank you for having me, and thank you for the sponsors and all the hard work that they've done, all the people that have put in the hard work to make this event possible, including my lovely moderator there. I said I like to introduce myself at the end. I'm Darrell as a Service. I'm on Twitter. You'll find me on YouTube, LinkedIn, web bits and places, and I work for a fantastic company called WM Reply. So if you want to engage with us and work with us, then that's where you'll find us.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much, Darren. It was a great session. We learned a lot.
Thank you.
Really nice. Yes.
All right. Well, I'll see people in the Twitter space in about 15 minutes.
Okay, one sec. We're trying to grab your Twitter handle.
Sure. I can go back to the to that QR code as well.
Okay.
All right, so if you've got the Twitter handle, there's the QR code.
Right.
And for those WM people on the call, thanks for supporting me. We'll see you back at work next week. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. It's Saturday here.
Yeah. So sorry, what's the group on LinkedIn called? Is it Microsoft Loop? How do we get the group?
It is the Microsoft Loop user group, because it rhymes nicely. I'll just show you on screen.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it will actually be in the resources link as well, but we'll just go to LinkedIn. Boom, 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 boom. And groups. Microsoft Loop user group. User groups on LinkedIn aren't open, and when you apply, a couple of us have to let you in, so be patient. I learned something new about LinkedIn. If you belong to 50 groups, you can't add another group. So we have sometimes people that are really keen, want to join a group, and I can't add them for some reason. and it turns out that it's because they belong to 50 groups or more. So you might have to sacrifice one group for the user group.
Yeah. Sure, got it.
Fantastic. All right, well, yeah, thanks everyone. I'm happy to stay on here for another 5 minutes or so. I think you'll probably need 10 minutes for the next presenter to come in and be playing the video, but I'll stop sharing my screen so you can get up the content there for promoting other things.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, so our next session will start at the top of the hour.